Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And indeed, it is Judd's Hockey Show. Judd, Declan, and of course, Jesse Pierce, Bar Down Beauties fame, NHL.com, does a great job covering the Wild. Basically, 1 week into the season, the Wild is 2-1. And I want to start here, you guys. All right, so an impressive win opening night against the Panthers, in which Gustafsson is just brilliant, outstanding. Then Saturday, they rallied in Toronto, but then ended up basically having their drawers blown off in that one. And then they come back against a bad Montreal team and look dominant. So 3 games into the season, now minus Spurgeon, minus Boldy, and Goligoski. Yeah, okay. Jesse Pierce, what is your opinion of this team so far? What have you liked that you've seen in the first 3 games? Conversely, what have you not liked?
I can go down the line of the good, bad, the ugly. The good, goaltending, which, not to rub it in your guys' face, I told you the goaltending was going to be there this year.
You're going to rub it in our face. That's okay. Go ahead.
Just a smidge. I like being right.
We deserve it.
You know, but even the Toronto game, I can't really hang that out on Gus. I mean, we'll get to that part of what the problem with the Toronto game was. The bad, or I don't want to say bad, offense hasn't really been there, right? I mean, yes, they forged a comeback, but even you look at the win in Montreal, the 5-on-5 goals weren't there. That was all special teams, 2 shorthanded, 3 power plays. So the offense, I need to see a little bit of an upkick, especially with the schedule as it looks ahead. You've got LA, which is offensively dominant. You got Edmonton, another strong offensive team. So I need the offense to pick it up. The ugly is the defense. Yes, Alex Goligoski's hurt, but I'm fine with that because his plays were absolutely horrendous in Toronto. Defense, just in general, terrible, terrible. Actually, it's funny. I had a dream. I told Dean Evison this, and he called me stupid for doing it and said that I've really hurt Alex Goligoski. So if that's the case, I'm sorry.
Was that an actual dream?
I woke up this morning being like, did I call in and like tell Dean this? And he was like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I was like, well, it's the truth.
Wow.
So all in all, I mean, it's 3 games in, but
Right.
I think the goaltending solid, offense needs a little bit better, and defense kind of a mess right now.
All right, let's continue the theme here. Good, bad, and ugly. I kind of like this. We can continue this little
Jesse
thing going
Pierce,
here that
man.
Jesse started. Yeah, let it go, Jess.
Program director,
Do it all.
unbelievable.
Let's start with the good, and let's also point out a little bit of rubbing it in your face. Marco Rossi, he looks good. He looks good through 3 games.
Yeah,
he looks
he really
poised.
does.
He looks strong. I think eventually more offense comes. He has a goal taken away from him on Thursday, but he still gets it back later in the weekend. I think Marco Rossi has looked really damn good so far. So I've liked what I saw from him. That part's been good. The bad, I guess just having to play with these injuries that have piled up to a degree. Goaltending is obviously you could loop into being good as well. But in general, I think the bad and ugly, if I can maybe morph them together, just I haven't loved what I've seen from the top line so far, especially 5-on-5. They have been pretty abysmal, in my opinion, through just 3 games. The sample size is small, as Judd likes to say. The kids like to say the sample size.
Kids say that, not me.
But the top line of Kirill, Zuccarello, and Hartman, I mean, they haven't really generated much offense. They've been scored on a ton already through 3 games. That's something that'll have to be fixed. Maybe you try someone else in the middle of them, but that's just something I have been saying for 6 months. But I would loop that in the ugly, and I would put Marco Rossi, I think, in the good category.
You know, I agree with you just to quickly on Rossi.
Thank you.
And here's my question. And I know it's 3 games, so it is a small sample size. But you guys, when do you know, and I know Dean went out of his way to be like, well, with Boldy out, we're gonna, we're gonna rotate guys at that position because we don't want to disrupt the bottom 6. But if Marco continues this, and like he is just flat out stronger now, there's his success is not like a fluke. It's just because he's a more mature person. How long before you have to move him up? He's playing with guys, in my humble opinion, and I know they're disciplined. Love to play him with disciplined guys because that's how I played the game. But to Declan's point about the first line, Jesse, okay, in my mind, I'm seeing these things. Okay, I'm seeing a 3rd line center who's got the skill, more skill than your first line guy does, and I'm seeing opportunity here for Kirill to have a guy who can make plays more than 38 does. Like, at what point in time does this become a come to Jesus, Dean? You're going to have to give this kid a chance on the first line.
It's when Kirill goes, hey, I would like Marco Rossi to play on the first line with me, right? I
Touche.
mean, that's got to be a part of it. No, I mean, I will say with these injuries, and I agree with you, Dex, I have been eating my words. Marco Rossi has come to be a little bit of what we
Ah,
want him to be, right? Again, through 3 games, but he's seen an increase in shifts and ice time, obviously, which is going to happen with injuries. It's going to happen when you're playing literally a man short, but 16 shifts in Toronto with 5 shots, 17 shifts with 2 shots in Montreal, almost 14 minutes of ice time. So I think that's good. I think you can't wait much longer, especially as I mentioned, when you start going up against the LAs, the Edmontons, the teams that you're going to have to perform well against that are within your conference in the West here. You're going to have to make some changes, especially injury or not. It'll be interesting to see who they recall from Iowa ahead of tomorrow's game when they host the Kings. But I think Marco deserves at least a look. And now, while guys are out, why not?
exactly. All right. So my good, Brock Faber. Dare I say the Wild won the trade? Like, we're 3 games in,
Careful.
but
People
dare
don't
I
agree.
say, and I know Fiala's your guy, okay? I know this. But my God, this kid is so, I mean, and we saw it in the playoffs to a certain degree, but I guess it's just being hammered home more. When I watch this kid play with the poise, and I will give Dean credit, as good as Brodeen, and Brock were together, the move last night was 1,000% the right move because both of those guys can carry guys.
Yeah.
Jake Middleton, I like the size, I like how he plays, but when you put him with Goose, it's not a good decision. When you put him with Faber, it's like okay, and then Brodeen, and so I thought that was a good move. But Brock Faber to me, I mean, for a kid stepping out of college and doing this, it is super impressive. Don't take this for granted. The bad, the cap problems, and it's not just the Wild, okay? My God, Gary, can we come up with a system where you literally don't send teams in? And it's not a Bill Guerin thing. It's the league. Like we've seen, there's been a few teams that have to play shorthanded because of your rules, which now you can circumvent after the fact a little bit coming up. But how stupid is this? I understand the cap is there for a reason, but you are hurting your product. Why are you doing this, Gary? Why are you doing this? Are you really that big of a miser? That big of a cheap ass? And, the escrow, they got to pay the escrow. They got to do this. First of all, the pandemic's been done for a while now. Second of all, every other sport has figured out how to navigate it. And third of all, you're on a new TV contract, you idiot. Like, seriously. Like, I don't think it's fair. And I know Dean's like, well, we'll go with what we have. But you're telling me that you had to go without Sammy Walker last night because of your just incredibly stupid rules. And by the way, it's your fault because the cap could go up. You've elected not to have it go up because you're a miser. So that's the bad. The ugly is, I'm with Jesse here. The bottom half of the defense, like Brodeen's marvelous. Faber, marvelous. Middleton, solid. I don't think he's great, but he's definitely solid. But when Goligoski's playing you guys, or John Merrill too, like that Toronto game, Toronto's a really good offensive team, but this is the National Hockey League. You're going to face Toronto's again. And watching what we did on Saturday night, I did not think that Gustafsson had a terrible game. I thought the people in front of him, far too many of them were terrible. It was ugly. And so I think you do have to find a way to repair that a little bit. And Spurgeon coming back is going to help. But Goligoski's hurt now and he's going to come back, but that's not going to help. And does John Merrill have much left? It sure doesn't look like it at times. So to me, the ugly is the bottom half of the defense because it borders on not being serviceable, which I think is at the minimum what you need to ask those guys to be serviceable.
It's almost a liability at this point. Like Alex Goligoski is a defensive liability, which is a serious problem. Again, love the swan song for the Goose. I appreciate him being home and all of that, but come on, man. Especially when there is such strong defensive prospects down in Iowa that deserve that out. Carson Lambos. Like, I'm salivating at the idea of like Sammy Walker coming up and helping the offense for a recall, but Carson Lambos should be right up there in that conversation too. And he can't be because you've got John Merrill and Alex Goligoski for whatever reason eating up those spots, and it just seems kind of silly, all in all.
And I've liked what I've seen from Kalen Addison. Again, small sample size. There's been moments, too, that I think he has been able to do what he's supposed to do. And I know the coaching staff management want him to play a more defensive, responsible game. And I'm certain that'll eventually, hopefully, get there. But in general, I've liked what I've seen from him. But yeah, I guess the cinder blocks and skates, the Gooses, the Merrills, etc., kind of bog things down, especially when you lose Jared Spurgeon.
And I thought Goose actually had a nice game in the opener on Thursday, but Toronto has definitely more firepower. And second of all, I don't know that this is going to sound silly, but I don't know how many games in a row Goose can be asked to even play at this age. Like, he looked like he was gassed on Saturday. And Toronto, again, they've got some really good players. But it's not like we're trying to dump on him. But Jesse, you're right. Like, if you've got alternatives, and we're talking about bottom pairing guys here.
Yeah.
So we're not talking play a ton. But, asking Alex Goligoski to replace Jared Spurgeon, I'm sort of with you. I'd rather go with a young guy that can skate, because this league's too fast now. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the thing. Just the starting point. It's too fast to take these veteran guys and be like, they'll be fine. They might be fine for a game, but I don't know that they can play, 2 or 3 games in a row at the level that's now necessary in this league to win.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Give me a guy with more hair. Lambos over Goose. There we go.
Hey, what have you heard about Boldy? Upper body suffered in Toronto, correct? On Saturday. They're saying week to week. What have you heard about his status? Because obviously that's going to be an absence that they got around it last night, but eventually here, that's a fairly big loss if he's going to be out for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, and to the earlier conversation about juggling some lines, maybe you see that mix as early as tomorrow night, because if you do recall Sammy Walker, which they can afford this time around, it'd be interesting to see what those lines look like. They've got a day off today, so I have no idea, because I live my life when they have a day off and get to live their lives as well. I did hear...
Call Dean, blow up the cell phone.
I think maybe that was part of why he told me I was stupid last night. He's like, why are you calling me on a day off? I don't know. I have heard Jared Spurgeon was on the ice with Andy Ness today, which is promising, but his week to week, as you recall, ends up being a 3 to 4 week timeline. Mm-hmm. Dean's hard to read sometimes with those. He loves just to say upper body. We don't know. I'll talk to John Worley, and that's that. Hopefully nothing too serious, but obviously, again, if you're going to have injuries, it's better to have it during this point in the season as you're starting to kind of maybe get things going. So as long as it's not back to his shoulder, which was the problem his first go around in the National Hockey League, I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, and you just hopefully you want to make sure that they made the right decision not to LTIR these guys, because what you have to miss at least 9 games, or is it, I think, 24 days on this, whatever comes first. I don't know if it's both. I don't know if they go hand in hand. I know it's at least 9 games and something like almost a month out of play. But if Spurgeon isn't ready, well, then you just wasted a bunch of cap space. And look, I'm all for the Wild pulling off a miraculous win against a really bad Montreal team yesterday. But hockey is so hilarious to me how you can just not play down you can just play down a player and just win a game.
It's like a forfeit when you're a child, right? Like, we don't have enough players. Okay, you forfeit.
But come on, I like it's multiple. If it was one just stupid team that made stupid financial decisions, I'd be like, shame on them. But it's not. Like, there's multiple teams now that can't. Come on, get around this rule. And by the way, it's only to Jesse's point, Dex, it's only for last night's game, and now they're going to free up enough space. And if they LTIR Goose, they can free up over $1 million. But here's until I read Russo's story, I didn't realize this. If you LTIR him, you can't accrue cap space. If you guys recall, in March of last year, when the Wild got Orlov and Ryan O'Reilly and shipped them out, they could do that because they had accrued a ton of cap space. So they were actually growing cap space by the day during the season. But if you LTIR a guy, I guess you can't do that. This is not physics.
It's classic hockey. It's classic hockey getting way too complicated, and that's why also other sports fans just don't understand. Like, imagine in baseball if they just had to play with 2 outfielders and they still won the game. Like, imagine how insane that would be. You can't do that. It'd be nuts.
Can't do that.
It's just, yeah. Okay, let's get to a positive. Let's get to a feel-good story that I think is going to be one of the best stories probably at the end of the season for a player, and that is watching Marc-Andre Fleury last night, probably his final game in Montreal, where he's from, and I think still lives, right, Jesse?
Mm-hmm.
And he was very good. Now, again, it's not a good team. The Canadians aren't. Win number 545. He is now 6 wins behind Patrick Waugh, of course, the former Canadian great goaltender. 6 wins for second place on the all-time wins list for a goaltender. Martin Brodeur is his first. He's at 691, so nobody's catching him. But it occurred to me in watching that last night that, again, I think we should all really, and I know he's not at his best right now, but I think we all should really appreciate as sports fans, and especially as hockey fans, what we get here. Like, I think we're going to look back on the Flowers' career and think it was really cool. It was really neat to have that guy play in our town. And watching it last night, and the other thing I found out, and this is a revelation, you guys, believe it or not, ESPN Plus is no longer blacking out the road team's games. So when I got home last night, I was able to watch the Montreal Canadiens telecast, which of course was all over Fleury. At the end of the game, showed him doing the lap. It was absolutely fantastic. But I think that this is a great feel-good story, that if this is his last year and that was his last game there, I feel like hockey provides a real special, what's the word I'm trying to find here? A real special feeling for a situation like that.
An appreciation. It is
Yeah.
like, right. You look at Montreal, who just got defeated, whose team is horrible. Like, my gosh, they are so bad and undisciplined and just a mess, but they still honored one of their own and recognized that moment. So I think hockey's so good at appreciating those things. And as a reminder to fans, this isn't just any milestone. These are historic milestones that have been in place forever. Patrick Waugh has not played hockey in a very, very long time and has not been able to get past that record. So Marc-Andre Fleury, to be in this discussion, to be in this conversation, I mean, I had chills just the other day recognizing, like, this is so cool. I get to cover him and I get to know him, because he is truly as good of a human being as anyone could be as well. So, I mean, it's just kind of that appreciation and that gratitude. He chose to be here, Minnesota fans. We love to talk about that. The players that want to be here, he chose to be here. So it's very cool. Excited to see him continue to scratch these off. Should this be his last year, which it does give you every feeling that it probably will be. And yeah, I love to see it. Nothing but the best for Marc-Andre Fleury. I almost called him literally Marc-Andre Flower, but yeah.
Oh,
still works.
Still works.
Here's a flower.
Yeah, I tweeted out last night that Wild fans are pretty lucky, and yeah, just Minnesota sports fans in general. It's probably, I just realized this, it's probably as close to like a Jim Thome situation when the Twins brought in Thome in 2010. Now Thome actually ended up having a really good year with them, and Flower, you can tell he's a little bit past the hill, past his peak. But it's still awesome to see him when he, stacks the pads and makes an absurd save last night. And you can just kind of feel those emotions when, he's doing that circle, knowing that it's probably the last time he'll be playing in Montreal. And yeah, I think Wild fans, Minnesota sports fans, honestly, in general, should be kind of in awe and watching legitimately one of the best players of all time at his position get to do this. I know Fleury kind of shook off a lot of different criticisms in the beginning part of his career, got off to a rocky start, but dude's won a lot of cups. Dude's gone to different teams and has helped them get to Stanley Cups. It's pretty cool to see.
Special teams. So again, as Jess said, really good last night. 3 for 8 on the power play, because the Canadians kept taking stupid penalties. 2 shorties on the same PK, which is incredible. Did the Wild find something? And this would be the only small upside to Boldy being out. With him out, Johansson was put on the first power play, and they talked extensively about this post game, but his entries into the zone are so good, so smooth, that it actually, that's a huge part, right? It sets you up. Like, we probably take it for granted, but we've seen guys that can't consistently get into the zone, and then you can't establish puck possession, and then things fall apart quickly. How much are you willing to give this a look to see if it should be permanent, Jess, with Johansson replacing probably Boldy and leaving him on the first power play unit?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dean Evson has to give that a good hard consideration. Matt Boldy has the same kind of entry, right? We all love the way that he brings the puck into play. And I mean, Johansson similar. That's probably why they have the chemistry that they do on that line. But Dean is got to be aware of the criticisms that surrounded the power play. Now they made a step in changing that by putting Brett McLean down in Iowa, which he was very much in charge of the PP unit as coaching. So I think that is also a big difference. But the other thing I love on special teams, I'm a big PK fan. I love Brock Faber on the penalty kill. We already talked about what an amazing player he is, but the fact that he can do what he does on the PK as well is just so much fun to watch. And that PK unit is probably even better than that power play, top power play unit for me. But yes, to answer your question, Judd, keep JoJo there. Why not? What it's working. Keep whatever works the same. It's the same to the way he likes his lines.
Is Brock as smooth as Brodin right now? Like where would you? And I mean, Brodin is one of the smoothest defensemen in the entire league. But when I watch them, like I can't tell you how impressed I am by what a kid again out of college has done. I mean, Faber to me, Dex, how close do you think Faber is to being basically almost as smooth? Like less than 10 games in as Brodin is on defense?
Well, I think the thing that's like really intriguing, and we saw this from Brodin when he debuted too, like 10 years ago already. I think there's an absurd amount of offensive upside to Faber's game that we're probably not giving him enough credit for. And Brodin teased Wild fans a little bit like that too, just because he was so strong defensively that you just kind of thought and assumed that his offensive will also come. But I mean, it's similar paths. Like Brodin only played 9 games in the AHL. That was it. And came right over from, I believe, was the Swedish league because he's from Sweden, and jumped right in and played a ton of games for the Wild basically right away and never looked back and never got demoted because he was so damn good they couldn't keep him out of the lineup. I think what's intriguing about Faber is there's probably an offensive layer to this game that we haven't seen yet. And yes, there's parallels to Brodin, but I think we realized after like the first 3 or 4 years of Brodin, like, no, the offense, he might not get a lot of points, but he can obviously drive possession. He's not a liability offensively, certainly. But I think with Faber, there's a layer to his offensive game that is so intriguing, and that's what I'm curious about. Because if that offensive game comes, you're talking about potentially one of the best defensemen in the NHL.
I mean, for me, you have to wonder if Brock Faber almost thinks of it as a respect thing. Like, okay, well, I'll stay back. I'll be the guy that stays back. They get to go be in the play. They get to go do that. So I almost think he just needs to get that confidence. And I know Dean Evason has told him that. He wants both him and Brodin. And now that they're separated, it's obviously a different situation. But because he trusts Brock's ability to get back and play defense and do that, I mean, he does it both, and he does it so seamlessly. I mean, I mentioned it before, he is going to have such a long, good career in the NHL. Hopefully that's a long time with the Minnesota Wild, but wherever it is, he's just that good, that intelligent of a hockey player mixed with the skills and the skating ability that he has. It's fantastic to see.
So with Spurgeon out, I think it's smart to put those two with different partners. But when Spurgeon comes back, I do want to see them back together because you could sort of see it coming when they. So I think Brodin, Dex, I think that you're right. He's not the offensive player that I think we suspected he might be when he got here. But I think part of that is because he was paired with Dumba for so long. And if you guys recall, and there was a time where, Matthew Dumba's defense resulted in offense. Like before he got in the fight with Tkachuk, the slap shot was a howitzer. He would make plays. And I always felt like the Wild was, and Brodin, who I think was basically best friends with Dumba. I always felt like he was waiting for that Dumba to come back, and he was covering for him and allowing or hoping that Dumba could generate offense. Well, obviously it didn't take place. So if they're put back together, what I'm curious about is the amount of switching that they were doing. Like you could see them start to catch on to because one of them has to stay back. We know that. Both of them don't. But they're such good skaters, you don't have to define a role. Like I felt with Dumba and Brodin, it was defined. Brodin's going to clean up for Dumba's mistakes, but Dumba's mistakes might turn it into offense. If you watch, like, Faber would pinch in down low, and then Brodin would as well, and then Brock would go back. So I guess what what I'd like to see here is this going to help both of them unleash more offense, because the more they play together and familiarity they get with each other, I think we could see a level of Brodin's game as well, where he's comfortable doing things that there is no doubt by the last 2 years he was not doing. Like, he would pinch in, but he was not switching a ton. There was a difference. So I just think that defensive pairing provides the potential to be so damn good. And dare I say, I don't think we necessarily have seen one like that. Even with Spurgeon at his best, I don't think that we've seen the potential that Brodin and Faber could bring if this tracks like it looked like it was when they were playing together.
It's like a game of Pong. They can just kind of go boom, 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 right? You know that game, Judd.
And they can get back. That's the incredible thing, guys.
It's an awesome pair. I mean, I think you had high hopes for it going in because everyone loves Brock Faber. Everyone loves Jonas Brodin. It makes sense. But yeah, I mean, remember there was once upon a time they wanted Alex Goligoski and Brock Faber to play together, and I think they did that for a little. Yeah.
What's that all about? Like, why are they like God bless them? And I mean, I saw Goose play when Goose was good. So I mean, it's not like he has not had a bad career, but I don't understand this like forcing it. Like, it's a very weird, and I don't know if it's because Alex and Billy Guerin are buddies or what, but it just feels like, and I don't think that Goose is anything like Suits. Like, I don't think that he's tries to be a locker room lawyer or tries to say I should play more. Seriously, I saw Suits last night again. I was watching 3 games at once, and there's Suits trying to freelance. It's like, just go away, buddy.
Honestly, if I was Goose, I would just probably go to Summit Orthopedics at this point, right? 25 locations in the Twin Cities in Greater Minnesota. Now. He could be there. 150 expert physicians and physical therapists, specially trained in their fields. Whether it's back, neck, spine, elbows, hands, wrists, knees, shoulders, hips, upper body, lower body, doesn't matter. Learn more at summitortho.com. Go check out Summit Orthopedics.
Last thing, boys and girls, do we like the fact that 3 games in, basically 2 games in, Kirill Kaprizov was beating himself up before he had a goal and 2 assists, that he was breaking down film of the first 2 games and was very ticked off that he, in his mind, was off to a slow start, which, by the way, again, was 6 periods of hockey.
Yeah, that's what he does. That's why we love him, though, right? Like, he is just this unique superstar that just wants to work his butt off. He wanted the A, went and told Billy that, which I love to hear, too. Like, he loves holding himself accountable, and I appreciate a superstar like that. I know, Judd, you and I were talking about that a little bit in the press box. He's like that blue-collar superstar. I am all for a player that wants to work hard, even with the skill. I mean, again, that's the way he'll be able to lead this team too, is simply by example. Like, you know what, this isn't good enough. I expect more of myself. It's not pressure, it's expectations. And Kirill, God bless you. I love it. It seems like just the right mentality for that little Russian superstar.
You like it?
Yeah, and if I'm Kirill, I don't just look at the film. I go to Dean and say, "Hey, how do we get a bump up another center here? How do we go about that? Huh? What do we got to do? My English is a lot better now. I can tell you right now.
I fear he's too loyal. I fear he won't do that. Like, he should, but I fear he won't.
You know who else I think probably runs that line? Zuki. And he'll tell Kirill, "Oh, no, we like it this way.
Yeah.
We like this. We can kind of, I don't know."
And Zuki, who I know had 3 assists last night.
Mm-hmm.
Those first 2 games, he was overpassing again. They both do. That's my one of my biggest gripes about that line is when Kirill and Zuki get in their, schoolboy mentality of let's play catch with the puck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, first of all, 97 shoot. Second of all, 36, when you have a shot, take the damn shot.
Take the shot.
Take the shot.
Like, this is why I would occasionally break them up, just as okay, if you guys are going to do this, you aren't going to get to sit at the same table for lunch. Okay? It's very high school like. If you're going to do this, I'm going to separate you 2. Now, you can go back once you've proven to be good boys, but not now. So, all right, great stuff, Dex. Jesse, thank you. Dex, tell the people what they need to know.
Hit the subscribe button for Daily Minnesota Sports Entertainment. This is Judd's Hockey Show. We'll be in a suite. We'll be together on Thursday for a little bit, at least a portion of it.
Jesse's
gonna be a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna have some Judd's Hockey Show listeners. We're really excited to hang out with you guys too. So hit the subscribe button. We'll see you on Thursday.